What would you do if your daughter exposed a stunning fact about your wife? Imagine finding out from her that your wife is not only cheating on you, but she is also spending all of your money on another man. Everything you had created together, including trust and affection, was abruptly shattered. My daughter, who I never anticipated to be the one to unearth this, revealed the truth. I was left stunned, indignant, and perplexed. The treachery was more than I could bear, but what happened next pushed me over the edge. This is the story of how everything unraveled, and the decision I had to make after the truth was revealed. Julie began to grumble more regularly about not having enough money for home bills and personal needs. At first I couldn't understand why. Everything looked in order, and the budget should have easily covered everything. We even got down to discuss the money, but the numbers didn't match up in her favor. Despite this, she argued that finances were tight and that we needed to spend more to preserve our lifestyle. I was apprehensive but began questioning whether I was being too harsh or not giving enough. I pondered raising her allowance. But then my eldest daughter Melissa approached me with something unexpected, which stopped me in my tracks. Like her mother, Melissa has always been bright and fiercely protective, especially of her siblings. One evening, she went into my study, her expression particularly somber. She handed me a receipt from a posh restaurant I hadn't visited in over a year. She informed me that she found it in Julie's room. Julie and I now have separate rooms for our privacy, albeit we still share a bed. I was astonished Melissa had been snooping in Julie's room, so I asked why. She didn't hesitate to tell me that Julie had been acting strangely lately, constantly hooked to her phone, smiling at texts, and spending little time with the kids, even the twins. Melissa had noticed, and it concerned her. Julie had always been attentive to the children, so the shift did not work. Wait for her. Melissa informed me she went into Julie's room out of concern and saw 3 expensive restaurant invoices. These were not ordinary meals, but expensive feasts, some costing more than $1,000, and it appeared like they were for 2 people rather than a family dinner. To make matters worse, the eateries were far from us but in posh neighborhoods distant from our usual haunts. Melissa's eyes were full of disappointment and wrath, not only against Julie but also toward me. She handed me the cash and walked out before I could say anything. That's when it hit me. She blamed me for not recognizing sooner, for allowing things to get so far. Maybe she was correct. That night, I chose to confront Julie. She was lazily scrolling through her phone on the couch, entirely ignorant of what would happen. I gently placed the invoices on the coffee table in front of Julie. I inquired, "Who have you been going out with to accumulate these expenses?" She was taken aback for a moment but immediately recovered and returned to her phone before responding. She claimed it was simply her closest buddy, and they were heading out to unwind after having a difficult week. According to her, a girls' night out was required, and the money she spent was not excessive for an enjoyable evening. Her answer seemed prepared, as if she'd been preparing for it, and that's when I realized her anxiety wasn't about the money, but about how much I'd figured out. Julie spent the rest of the day figuring out where my head was. She casually mentioned the bills, making little probing comments like, "Oh, so you've been looking at the expenses," or, "Why are you suddenly concerned about the spending?" The way she tried to dismiss it made me uneasy. She was afraid of discovering the truth, not of losing money. Over the next few weeks, I played along. On the outside, I appeared to be a devoted spouse going through the motions. Still, on the inside, I was filled with skepticism and confusion. I began silently monitoring Julie's actions. Though I had always respected her privacy, I started reviewing her phone bills and examining her phone whenever I could. Initially, there was nothing to indicate infidelity, simply regular discussions with her so-called best friend, whom she listed as her dining partner. But then something strange attracted my attention. There were late-night calls and messages from a number not in her contacts. It wasn't only the timing that worried me, but the frequency. It happened practically every night, even while I was at home. This was far too personal for a casual friend. I'm not one to jump to conclusions quickly, but this circumstance had too many red flags. So, I took the next obvious step and hired a private investigator. It wasn't an inexpensive decision, but I needed to know the truth regardless of the expense. Within a few days, I found what I was looking for. Julie wasn't just cheating on me. She was dating a younger guy closer to her age who was diametrically opposed to me. He needed to be more affluent, successful, and cultured. He was the type of man who gravitated toward women like Julie because they could financially support him, and Julie, in turn, relished the thrill and attention. The private investigator did not hold back. He handed me everything, including photos, text messages, and recordings of their meetings. I had no idea how he received the knowledge, and I honestly didn't care. It was awful to watch everything. Julie, who always pretended to have high standards and appreciated the better things, was sneaking around with this low life. To make matters worse, she had been using my money to support the entire affair. Those expensive restaurant bills she claimed were for her and a friend, they were for both her and him. The knowledge that I had unintentionally paid for their small rendezvous made me sick to my stomach. While I was at home caring for her family, Julie was out spending my money on her little adventures. I assumed we were going through a challenging period, nothing we couldn't handle. But it wasn't just the money but the lies and treachery. She was leading a second life right in front of me, beaming across the dining table while secretly funding her affair with someone who deserved nothing. Now, all I can think about is exacting my revenge. That's why I'm here, to see if anyone has any solid suggestions for how I can achieve it. Losing my first wife and then trying to reconstruct my life with Julie while raising my children was difficult enough. Looking back, I realized that there were better people than Julie for me initially. But at the time, I was just trying to provide some security for my family after everything we had been through. Now, I deserve to know what's truly been going on. And honestly, Julie deserves what comes to her, whatever road I take. I have been through enough. Things were about to become interesting. After learning something like this, most guys would file for divorce, divide the assets, and go away. Simple and tidy. Julie, however, did not deserve a clean break. She lied, mistreated me, used me as her personal ATM, and worst of all, disrespected our children. I would not let her walk away as if it were a transient error in judgment. No, I wanted her to experience every ounce of misery she had given me and to truly regret everything. So I started planning. And when I plan, I make sure it is airtight. The first thing I did was act dumb. I played the role of the ignorant husband, too preoccupied with work and life to notice his wife sneaking around behind his back. I did not confront her. Why should I? Confronting her too soon would have allowed her to distort the narrative, guilt-trip me, or attempt to save her reputation. Instead, I smiled, nodded, and even agreed to some of her demands. Yes, you read that correctly. I gave her more money, just as we had discussed before all this happened. She complained about not having enough to run the home, so I said, what the heck, let her think she was winning, and this is precisely what happened. She believed her manipulation was effective, and I was reverting to my naivety. She had no idea I was setting her up. Step 2 was considerably more strategic. I quietly began shifting assets. Working with my lawyers, I established financial barriers that Julie could not overcome. I slowly but steadily transferred money from our shared accounts. Of course, not all at once, but gradually enough she would not notice. By the time I was finished, every penny that mattered to me was safely out of her grasp. It was time-consuming but rewarding. The less control she possessed, the more complicated her fall would be when the time came. Julie was always interested in the money side of things, particularly my business. In reality, I'd been training her for a more prominent position. I connected her with mentors and put her in classes, and she began to explore particular accounts. I was teaching and instructing her, and you know what? That's probably why she believed she could trick me. But I read the writing on the wall and realized I had to cut her off softly. She would have known I was too bright for her garbage, so I gradually shifted authority away from her. I denied her access to the accounts she'd been eyeing and restricted what she could see and affect. I didn't stop there, however. I contacted the mentors I had been working with to coach her and informed them that the strategy had changed. I absorbed the mission without her even knowing it. By the time I was done, she had no idea she'd been completely shut out, and I didn't intend to tell her, at least not yet. I moved after ensuring my financial security and effectively boxing Julie out. I served her divorce papers. My lawyer had spent weeks working on them, and everything was in order. She hadn't seen it coming. When I delivered them to her, the expression on her face helped me sleep better at night. She instantly began crying, asking what she had done to deserve this, playing the victim exactly as I expected. She had no idea I knew about the romance. I wasn't about to give her a satisfying explanation. No closure, just a cold, hard reality check. I had previously prepared my 2 eldest children. They were aware of what was going on and fully supported me. They assisted me with packing Julie's belongings, so when she was sitting there blubbering and demanding answers, I just asked someone to help her get out of the house. I didn't bother having a final talk. This chapter was closed. Of course, it did not end there. Julie attempted to fight back. She threatened to take me to court, claiming she deserved more than half of everything. She truly believed she could still win. She assumed I was leaving her for another lady, so I did this. She had no idea I had a pile of evidence against her. We ended ourselves in court just as I had imagined. Julie hired a lawyer and came out swinging. Still, she had no idea that I had all the cards, the affair and her mismanagement of our marriage finances. When the evidence entered the courtroom, it was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. She did not stand a chance. The judge did not simply side with me, she tore Julie apart. Julie came out of that courtroom with nearly nothing. Given her current lifestyle, this modest payment would barely cover her yearly expenses. She lost her home, money, and, most significantly, her dignity. Sure, she received 30% custody, but even that seemed like a joke. The elder 3 do not want anything to do with her. They saw through her lies and machinations and now know the faithful Julie. She is no longer a part of their life, and I have clarified that she will not be a part of mine. But I wasn't done. See, Julie had established herself in our community. She was proud of her reputation, so I also determined to destroy it. I took all of the proof, minus the graphic material, and distributed it to her social circle, including her friends, family, and acquaintances. I ensured everyone understood who she indeed was and what she had done. A reputation was damaged. Invitations to elegant dinners, parties, and events? Gone. For the time being, yes. I know that if she obtains some money, she can return eventually. But who wants to trust a well-known cheater around their wealthy husbands? My PI also told me that her lover vanished as soon as things got bad, which was not surprising. Julie had no money without her high standing and the financial support I offered. In the end, Julie received what she deserved. She believed she could play and utilize me as a safety net while seeking immature enjoyment. But she ended up with nothingness, and believe me, I let her feel every second of it. And me? I am free. Free from her manipulation and toxicity. She can't damage me or my family anymore, and I'll never let someone like her get near. Again, by maintaining a veneer while working behind the scenes, I secured my assets and gave myself an advantage when confronting her. It's reasonable that I wanted her to experience the total weight of her actions, particularly their impact on our family. The way I prepped my children and involved them in the process was admirable, and I know they loved seeing me stand hard on my convictions. Regarding the repercussions in her social circle, I ensured that she confronted the consequences of her conduct in all aspects of her life. While it may have seemed like a lot of work, I was determined to prevent her from manipulating or deceiving others as she did with me. And that's how I took charge, safeguarded my family, and ensured she faced the full repercussions of her conduct. It wasn't easy, but standing up for myself and my ideals was worth the effort. If you love my story and want to stay updated on similar events, please subscribe. Turn on the notification bell to never miss a new post. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.